Between 1884 and 1885, a series of violent attacks terrified the East End of London. At first, the assaults appeared to be unrelated, but as more victims were attacked, investigators began noticing a disturbing pattern. The victims were often young women, many of them domestic servants, returning home after long hours of work. They frequently walked alone through poorly lit streets, where gas lamps offered little protection from the darkness. The attacker would approach without warning. Armed with a knife or another sharp weapon, he would suddenly assault his victim before fleeing into the night. In several cases, the violence appeared to serve no obvious purpose. There was little indication that robbery was the motive, and many of the victims had no known connection to one another. One of the most controversial cases connected to this period involved Emma Smith, a young woman who was brutally attacked in April 1888. Before her death, Smith reportedly claimed that several men had assaulted her. Her case is sometimes associated with the broader wave of violence against women in London's East End, but historians continue to debate whether it should actually be connected to the Servant Girl Annihilator. The timing and circumstances make the connection uncertain, and that uncertainty highlights one of the biggest problems investigators faced. Victorian police had few of the forensic tools available today. There were no modern DNA tests, limited crime scene preservation, and little scientific evidence to reliably identify an attacker. Crowds could gather around crime scenes before investigators arrived, potentially destroying valuable evidence. Witness descriptions were also inconsistent. Without reliable forensic evidence or a confirmed suspect, investigators struggled to determine who was responsible. Then, just as mysteriously as the attacks had begun, they appeared to stop. No definitive arrest was made. No killer was conclusively identified. The name Servant Girl Annihilator would eventually become associated with a series of attacks in Austin, Texas in 1884 and 1885. Although the broader idea of a connection to London's East End has sometimes been confused with later Victorian murder cases, the historical record does not establish that a Servant Girl Annihilator operated in London during those years. What makes the story particularly fascinating is what happened a few years later. In 1888, London's East End was again plunged into terror when a killer began targeting women in and around Whitechapel. That killer became known as Jack the Ripper. Because both cases involve vulnerable women, violent attacks, and unidentified perpetrators, some have speculated about a connection between them, but there is no conclusive evidence that the Servant Girl Annihilator and Jack the Ripper were the same person.